Hello, and welcome to our webcast on beating the employment crisis, fueling your quality program with shop floor to top floor connected worker technology. Your speakers today are Dave Landreth from Augmenteer. Dave has over 32 years of experience in manufacturing technology, focusing on startup technologies for frontline operations. He enjoys thinking about how to more effectively engage and empower the frontline workforce. And as such, Dave spends a lot of time speaking with manufacturers to understand the workforce challenges they're trying to solve and then bringing solutions to bear that help address those challenges. We also have Chip Williams, who brings 30 years of experience in the quality arena to our conversation today. He currently serves as the North American Quality Manager for Hitachi Energy, where his division makes power and distribution transformers for the electrical power grid. Chip and the team at Hitachi recently started working with Dave and the Augmenteer team on an application for a facility near Montreal. And I will say Hitachi is also currently an ETQ customer as well. So you'll hear more about this project a little later in our presentation. My name is Angela Anderson, Product Marketing Manager with ETQ, and my career background skews mostly to the aviation industry, bringing both hardware and software products to market. And I've been with ETQ for 2.5 years or so, and I'm really enjoying learning more about the role of quality in manufacturing. And just a couple of housekeeping items before we really get rolling here. This session is recorded. We'll send a link to everyone who's registered. And if you have any questions along the way, be sure to drop those questions in the, or drop those in the questions panel on your GoToWebinar interface panel. Kicking off with just laying out a couple of objectives, some things we hope to achieve over the course of the next 40 minutes or so. We hope that you will walk away with a better understanding, perhaps, of the different aspects of Connected Worker. We hope you'll walk away with an idea and understanding of the various use cases and the value of integrating an enterprise QMS with a Connected Worker solution. And we also hope you walk away with some practical ideas and steps that you could take to advance perhaps the Connected Worker initiatives at your company. So before I hand off to Dave, and before we dive too deep, I'd like to set the stage for how the Augmenteer partnership fits into the ETQ Reliance QMS ecosystem. So at the heart of ETQ Reliance, of course, is the premise that quality touches every input to the value chain. So from designing quality into the product at the outset to ensuring receipt of conforming supplier materials, managing that quality during the manufacturing process, to acting on the feedback from customers on product quality and performance. So, and we use this term closed loop quality to describe how ETQ Reliance helps close those process gaps. So as Dave mentioned at the top there, and ensure no quality or safety related issues are going to fall through the cracks. So ETQ Reliance kind of acts as that glue, and I hope you all are seeing, experiencing this in your own, deployments of ETQ Reliance. It really acts as that glue for the stakeholders to share information, use those same workflows and automations, and be able to contribute to the quality of their products and processes kind of at every stage of that product life cycle. So this integration partnership with Augmenteer really deepens that connection between shop floor manufacturing activity and that broader quality management set of processes like quality events, CAPA, change management, DOT control and training, FMEA, and on and on. So the combination of the technology capabilities allows you to detect plant level quality and those safety issues sooner, bring those teams together to resolve them faster, and then systematically improve quality and efficiency earlier in that value chain using that robust kind of that QMS infrastructure that ETQ Reliance provides. So that's kind of setting the stage where this partnership kind of lives in this ecosystem. So with that, I'm going to pass the mic to Dave to dig into what Connected Worker is and what some of those pressure points that the manufacturing space is experiencing right now. So Dave, let's start with perhaps start with that level set. Like, what does Connected Worker mean?
Yeah, that's a really good question because we've seen an evolution in the definition to be more aligned to what manufacturers are trying to solve for. Right? Connected worker is really a term that came about maybe 16 or 17 years ago. And when companies first started thinking about that, it was pretty simply recognized as digitizing work procedures and putting that in the hands of a frontline worker. And while that's true, connected worker is really, I mean, just look at the word connected and think about that. It's really much more about transformative process optimization, where you're bringing together people, process, and technology. It's not that dissimilar thinking about Industry 4.0 as a methodology for meeting all of your business objectives, right? If as a manufacturer, we're really trying to improve productivity, we have to be sensitive to those other levers. We have to think about quality and safety in every aspect of what we do. Not to steal any of Chip's thunder, but it'll be great as he shares his journey. When I think about our early engagements with Chip, there was no talk of we need a connected worker application. It was we're trying to solve for improving the quality and the throughput of our end product to meet demand. So connected worker is really about solving the problems that you've got within your organization that impact quality, safety, and productivity. It's really, again, that idea of personalizing your approach within any given organization to harmonizing the people, the process, the technology in a way that supports the variability of a frontline worker and integrates them into your digital thread. I always think about like just simplifying connected worker for me is that old I Love Lucy episode where the candy machine started speeding up, the conveyor sped up, and there was no sense of what Ethel and Lucy could do. So how can we censor Lucy and Ethel, recognize their variability, feed that in through that production line to make sure that everyone is in alignment? So that's what I think about when I think about connected worker today.
Yeah, that's great. So it's really just going after, starting with the problem, starting with that problem statement, and then what's the available technology to help with that.
That's exactly right. Yeah, when we think, I touch on this idea of every worker as a sensor for the problem you're trying to solve. Quality sensor, right? And this wasn't necessarily us being brilliant. This was a few years ago. I was with a team from a dairy manufacturer in Ireland, and they said our belief is that Quality 4.0 is about every worker being a quality sensor. It doesn't matter if it's someone cleaning a water closet, because if they have an issue there and a worker doesn't get back on the floor in time, then we've got an issue with keeping the quality of our product. The CEO needs to be a quality sensor. How do we extend the traditional technologies aligned to quality and make everyone part of solving the problems? Don't focus on catching something as it's about to go out the door with a bad seal. Understand that every step of work being optimized to my capabilities is going to impact quality. And could we move to the next slide, Angela? Sorry.
Oh, yes.
When we think about this journey of supporting a worker from the start of their life cycle with your organization through supporting their growth within your organization and having them want to stay, there are some key best practices that we've seen evolve over the last few years that Connected Worker are helping to support. If we start in the upper left and think about the idea of onboarding and training employees, right? Historically, we get somebody in a classroom, we train them for a period of time, and then we get them on the floor. It didn't didn't matter as much 15 or 20 years ago. We had the luxury of retaining those employees for 20 years. LNS Research has done some really good studies on that. The average tenure has gone down from 20 to 3 years. And the average employee stays now about 9 months. So if I spend a month and a half with somebody in a classroom, training them, I've lost a lot of potential productivity. And then the studies also tell us that somebody learning in the flow of work, being onboarded and training in the flow of doing their jobs, gets them to competency much more quickly. So focusing on bringing that training modality to the shop floor. So many of those tools that were created for learning were created for those of us sitting at desks. So bringing learning down to the factory floor is a new trend that's gained a lot of adoption, and we're seeing it bring good value. Once you've got somebody in the flow of work, manufacturing, we've got the unique luxury because people are doing tasks, right? They're actually doing things that capture data. If we can see how somebody is doing relative to their peers, relative to our time studies and expectations, we now have the ability to understand where their gaps may be and provide personalized or smart guidance that fills in those knowledge gaps. So taking people down different paths based upon where they're excelling and where they've got room to get better. Those are really powerful methodologies for being sure that somebody not only works safely and efficiently on quality, but we're also seeing a lot of data that says this makes a worker feel like they belong. When they feel like they belong, they don't churn out. So it's increasing retention by personalizing how we're supporting them. Going deeper into the idea of support, think about all of that tacit knowledge that you've already lost, that we can't get back in the doors. There are ways to leverage those resources, whether they're in remote facilities for you or sitting home on a sofa. We are seeing a trend toward, much like the gig economy of an Uber, where you've got people that want to work sometimes. You can leverage these same technologies, these same connected worker platforms for remote engagement with those employees who may have left and want to work part-time, SMEs that are at home or somewhere else. So that's another big trend. And then of course, everyone's talking now about AI and generative AI. So the ability to take all of that rich knowledge around work that you're doing, all of that data that's residing in your quality management systems around procedures, work processes, certifications, and endorsements, being able to source those OEM data to personalize a response to somebody who is looking for help in doing work. Again, you get your own answer, you do it without leaning over to Grumpy Dave who's sitting next to you, and so you feel like you belong. These are all methods for not only supporting the need at the moment, but also driving engagement and happiness of your workers. So really exciting. And then upskilling and reskilling. There's two things really going on here. I mean, very often because we're short on workforce, we move people around. They may not do something for a period of time. And the idea that just because someone's been trained once, they're going to know what to do when they don't do this task for 6 months again is dangerous. So being able to deliver upskilling right in the flow of doing work so that somebody's refreshed. Reskilling them, same thing. But then for the newer generation of worker, we all see that there's a strong desire to be engaged with mobile technologies and an understanding of my career. How am I doing? How am I growing? So being able to support growth on the factory floor, because it's very hard for us to pull people off the floor and put them back in a classroom to get trained. We need productivity. So this approach to connected worker, these are some of the highlights of what we're seeing work incredibly well across manufacturing. Angela, I think I've probably done a lot there. And I may have touched on some of that here, so we'll see how quickly we move through this. Right? We all know the issues that manufacturers are facing, and they ebb and flow. right? Workforce retention is a very large problem. That's not going away. One of the things we are seeing level set a bit right now is the challenge with getting workforce. In the US at least, many of the companies that we talk to say that they have enough of the workers or they've gotten to net neutral on their losses. But what they have got is what we call out here on the left side, that brain drain. If you think about it practically, how many people are coming in as candidates today that don't have the same mechanical aptitude of somebody that you hired 20 years ago? My own children, love them to death, but they can't change the oil in a car, and I'm going to then put them in an environment where they are at risk if they don't know how to do something mechanical. So how do we fill in for that knowledge drain and supporting that worker that doesn't know as much as the people that are leaving? Technology expectations down the bottom left, the idea of supporting a digitally native workforce. People have talked about this for a number of years. I was skeptical for some of those years. I didn't really think that that was something people would expect, but we are hearing it loud and clear. We work with a number of companies that have adopted connected work technology, not only for the business impact, because they know their employees expect this. That's what the workforce today wants. And so you have to put those tools in their hands. Down in the lower right, the idea of training, we've talked about this a bit, but that putting someone in a classroom is not how much of your workforce that's coming in today ever learned. And it doesn't support them once they get into the flow of doing their tasks. So again, we need to bring that down to the floor. And lack of data visibility has always been a challenge in connected work, because we've got multi-generational workers and they do things differently. The data doesn't tell the same story across the workforce. So the advancements with AI and generative technologies has allowed systems to be able to cleanse this data, look at what's really representative of work. So there is a great opportunity there that we're seeing across a lot of manufacturing. Angela, thank you. I did touch on this number earlier. LNS Research, they do a lot of great work in the areas of manufacturing, digital transformation. They do a lot of work in focusing on quality and the amount of rework that's being done today, recalls, and they tie a lot of that back to these very specific data points. The average tenure has dropped nearly 600%. The time in a position has gone down comparably. And then this number, actually, we see numbers that are much higher than this often, but the number of employees that make it through 3 months, 50% are churning out. We've been with clients where you see 9 new employees the second day of training, they're down to 3. So we need to come up with ways through supporting those workers with technology to make them want to stay and fill in the gaps in their capabilities while they're coming up to speed. Yeah, these are some numbers we've all seen. We saw them through COVID and we wondered if they would hold on, but the fact is that these things are not changing. There just aren't enough skilled, and skilled is a big word in this first paragraph. There are workers out there, and figuring out how to get them in the door is one challenge, but the skills that we need to run our manufacturing facilities, those skills are gone. They're sitting on a beach at best, or they're somewhere else. But even if we brought everyone back that was out there that have the right skills, we're going to have a huge gap. So we need to figure out how to resolve for that. Deloitte continues to do studies on the impact to GDP. We just don't have enough people to keep up with demand. We've personally seen several companies where they've shut down lines for days because they don't have the right skills to fill doing those tasks. So the net is the labor problem is not going away. It's both people and knowledge, and we need to work to augment those with the appropriate technologies and process change. This is just kind of something for you to think about yourselves. We still talk to organizations that say, it's okay, you know, we're going to get through this. We don't need to change anything. But like, just assume you are not going to have the opportunity to change things. If you're down on either the number of employees, right? On average, we see companies working with 20 to 24% less workers. Absolutely see that amount of knowledge drain from organizations. So how are you going to keep your quality and production up if that's the case and things don't turn back around? You have to have a plan for this. Onboarding, we talked about those LNS numbers. If I've only got somebody for 9 months, I need to get them up to speed more quickly, so I can get productivity sooner, but also so that that employee feels like they belong and I've got a better chance of retaining them. Because that window to hang on to them is very short. So question is, do you have a plan for that? And then training and upskilling, this again goes to the generations of workers that we're bringing into our facilities today. They've got expectations about training and growing in their careers. They want to know what's coming next. If you don't have an easy way for them to see and understand that, it can't be locked in a vault where HR is the only one that really knows in real time what might be next. So these are just questions for you to think about for yourselves. Thanks, Angela.
Yep.
Yeah. And so when Angela talked about the partnership with Hexagon ETQ and Augmenteer, and we love the partnership. I will say that we honestly did not figure this out on our own. We both work in the same environments, and it was through several of our clients and just trying to understand other things that they were doing. We both ETQ Reliance and Augmenteer came to the realization, working with one of the largest CPG organizations in the world, and they said, we use both of your technologies together to drive our Quality 4.0 initiative. We talked to a food and fruit producer who said, we can't wait until these cups go out with a quality issue. We need to catch these when we're center lining and everything else that we do. So that's how we bring these together. There were a few more clients like that, so we said they're probably on to something. We got together, our organizations met with several of those clients, and there clearly is a recognition from organizations that focus on quality that there is a way to extend the value of those applications through a complementary platform, and that's where we brought together both ETQ Reliance and Augmenteer to really focus on closed loop quality. And I think maybe the next slide talks to that a bit more, Angela.
No, I think after this, we're going to turn our attention to Chip and his journey with Hitachi Energy. We can.
No, that's great. That's great. I will just kind of thinking about this for 1 second before I hand off to Chip, how these applications bring value together. ETQ Reliance is, I think of it, hope this doesn't offend anyone, as the vault. That's where things go to stay safe. That's where you keep your family jewels. That's where you keep that documentation once it's been hardened. And that's perfect at a point in time, but work continues to change, right? It's one thing if it's an engineering change order, there's a process for that, but if somebody recognizes that a simple process change in how I'm managing my center lining would bring value, would compress the time, and I've got a paper form down on the floor, that paper form doesn't have an easy way to live within ETQ Reliance. ETQ Reliance doesn't have an easy way to get to the factory floor and then those changes to get back. So something as simple as that within dock control, right? You think about new employees, you're bringing in operators on a weekly basis very often. They don't know what quality is all about. They don't know how to measure quality. They don't know what some of the outcomes that they're capturing in a mobile device might actually mean. And having the integration between these systems where a connected work application can say, yeah, that's something that is an issue. That's something that should fire off a CAPA and feed to ETQ Reliance. And then once that issue is open, ETQ resolves it. It comes back to the facility floor. Everyone knows that the challenges have been resolved. So those are just very simple examples, but incredibly powerful. And every organization that we talk to jointly finds those two in particular as big needs for them.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. It's a really great summation of some of those key use cases that we've heard and worked with customers on. And apologize, the slide I've realized was a bit out of order, but thank you for that. Okay, so we'll go ahead and turn things over to Chip to tell us a little bit about Hitachi Energy and the speaking of the problem statements, problems they were trying to solve, and some of the solutions that have come out for them.
Sure. Okay. Thank you, Angela. Yeah, we can, I think, go to the next slide and I'll introduce our company to you and then we'll go from there. So Hitachi Energy is a global company. We're located on, I think, 6 of the continents. We have factories all over the world, and we really are focused on the power grid industry. And we have 4 business units: grid automation and high voltage products and grid integration. And then the business unit that I'm in is transformers. As I mentioned at the beginning, we provide power and distribution transformers really all over the world, with factories from all over the world. The customers we serve, there's a variety of customers and industries. Certainly the transportation industry, the utility industry is a big part of it. Data centers are becoming a huge customer. Think about all the things that drive electrification, and it's just booming these days. We can't seem to get enough of it. So we are very much busy and growing and expanding. And we offer, as a Hitachi Energy, offers services as well as some software and automation and systems, and then products is again the arena that I am in, providing those transformer products. And so I mentioned, we're located pretty much in all of the continents. So it's a growing, booming industry. It's a very active industry currently with everything that's going on with the power grid industry. Go to the next one. So just to kind of explain really how Hitachi Energy and Augmentir came together, we have factories, some of which make fairly high volume of units. Even those aren't totally standard. There's some uniqueness from order to order. But then we have, with our power transformers, a situation where every unit is engineered to order. And so they can be unique and different. And we would have documentation, operational documentation like instructions, and we would have quality documentation about all the checks and inspections and everything, and they were somewhat generic. So a lot of times they applied to that unit being produced, but sometimes they didn't apply, and sometimes they were just not applicable. Or maybe this step of the operation is now done at a different step. What that creates is somewhat of, it creates confusion for the operators. And so that's kind of the world we were in. And our quality inspections were recorded on paper, a massive amount of inspections that we would then PDF and produce about a foot thick of paper that we would send to our customers, which I know that sounds archaic to even think about that. We really didn't have the real-time feedback about what's going on in the operation, what step in the operation are we in, what issues are being seen, and kind of, as I was stating at the beginning, just the fact that some of the tasks or inspections sometimes could be bypassed because they weren't applicable. But the danger then is that things that were very much applicable also could be bypassed. And it creates a lack of discipline and it creates confusion to the operator. And that's not what we wanted. You can go to the next slide now. So really, I credit our team up at our factory outside of Montreal. They got together and our quality manager kind of had the vision and laid this out. But they said, okay, we want to change this. We want to have some upfront planning before we go into production to basically define that unit and describe what is applicable for that unit and then where. Not just what process, but what step within the process is this going to show up. Let's present that information right then and only then. And then the quality checks and inspections that needed to take place, both by production operators as well as quality individuals from the quality department. We wanted to basically say, when that is applicable, we want to present it. If it's not applicable, don't even show it. And then let's show it at the right step, at the right time, to the right people. And so that's really the kind of the vision that we had, and we started laying this out, working with Augmentir to basically define the unit up front before it ever went into production. And so then when it does go into production, then we have that operator basically only seeing things that are directly applicable to the operator, and therefore we could designate that you can't skip things. It's all applicable. We want it all, and you don't go to the next station. In fact, you can't go to the next step in the workflow until that is done. And it just made it so much more of an improvement as far as process discipline goes. And if you have to think of two words, process discipline, that's what we were trying to drive. And this, we just can't state it strongly enough how important this has been in helping us get to that process discipline. And we also integrated other things. Our goal was to make it where it's one-stop shop for the operator. They don't have to go into 5 different systems or applications to do things. Everything's right there for them. They get their instructions. They are told what they're supposed to do. They're told what to check. They enter their results right there. Their training is accessible from the application, Augmentir in this case. Not only the training, but the instructions. If they need to pull the instructions, which by the way are in ETQ, but they can then pull those instructions and look at the section of those instructions that are applicable. So that's really the journey that we took and how we solved our issue. So again, keep in mind 2 huge factors. One, we're now only presenting the right information at the right place, at the right time, to the right person. And everything's now applicable. So there's the discipline. If it shows up there, then you need to provide the answer. There's no skipping anything. And then the second is just the operator accessing any help that he or she needs as far as training, as far as instructions. And our vision is to integrate more and more things where that operator lives in this one application and can do as much as they need to do there. So that's really the journey we took. That's how we solved our issue. And the telltale sign of whether it's effective or not is the operations people, the operators, and the operations management love this. They ask for it. They are huge advocates of it. I was on the floor there in Montreal where an operator pointed out something, an additional check that needs to happen. Within an hour, we had it there showing up for them. So it's the ability to quickly also respond and react and add and revise as needed. So it's been quite a remarkable and truly a helpful experience for us.
Great, thank you so much, Chip. Really appreciate
Sure.
you going through your story here. And so, what was the timeline of all of this kind of unfolding?
gosh, I might need Dave to pipe in. You know, we kind of, I mean, in reality, my recollection is this went very quickly. This is not a long drawn out process. Now we probably took longer time wise just because we were brainstorming solutions and, you know, and we weren't quite sure what we wanted and had a lot of back and forth and, hey, let's change that. Let's, you know, do it differently. But Dave, you feel free to comment too, because I know you were involved early on. But I mean, it really from the concept to having something to start working with was just a matter of what do you say, Dave? A few months, and we
Yeah,
were pretty much off and running.
that's right, Chip. Yeah, the first project, Angela, took just under 2 months to build the core capabilities. And when I say build, it's a lot of configuration within the platform, but there were some things that were very unique to the business of Hitachi Energy that we saw as being valuable within our technology to have, you know, to be available to other clients. So we did some work with the team. That went very quickly, and then we've started on a couple of projects since then, where we're bringing more of the value chain of Hitachi Energy together across training and services.
Okay, well, great. Thank you so much, gentlemen. I think we're coming up on time here, so we'll go ahead and close things out. I will say, if this any of this information has piqued your interest out there in the audience, and you want to kind of learn more about bringing together an enterprise QMS where you're kind of setting yourself up for that repeatable quality across the value chain, but then also having a connection point where you're engaging that frontline workforce through connected worker technology. We'd love to talk to you, hear about what's going on in your organization and how we might help address some of the challenges you're looking to solve. So if you're not, if you're engaged with someone at ETQ, go on ahead and reach out to your ETQ contact, or simply drop us a note at sales@etq.com, and we'd love to start the conversation with you. Thank you so much for joining today.